Elenore Sturko, now the independent MLA for Surrey Cloverdale, joins me now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Michelle. Thanks for having me on.
It's good to talk to you. What is your reaction to John Rustad resigning today?
Well, I think that this is a reset button. This is time for the Conservative Party to move in a direction that puts them in a better position to form the next government of British Columbia. And, listening to, my friend Trevor Halford talk about the fact that, it's not necessarily a day of overwhelming joy, because I think it's a really difficult day. And I have a lot of respect for the move that John Rustad just made in the best interest of British Columbians. And I tip my hat to him for doing that. But I do think that this is a positive step, and, change starts from day one. And I think that this is a great opportunity to put the province in a better position to have some change provincially.
In September, John Rustad ejected you out of the Conservative caucus. He said you had tried to undermine his leadership. At the time, you said you felt a new sense of freedom. Are you now considering returning to the BC Conservative caucus?
Well, you know what? I said actually also from the beginning that if there was a leadership change, that I would be willing to return if invited. I haven't been invited at this point, and I am actually feeling very content at the moment serving my constituents and getting results for British Columbians as an independent. But that being said, I do think that being united on the center right and being a strong opposition is something that would be important to holding this government accountable and forming the next government. I also like what Trevor said about, not necessarily measuring yourself on a spectrum of left and right, but measuring between right and wrong for this province. We've seen a lot going wrong under the NDP, and I think it's time to set things right. I think back, and I've done a lot of reflecting since, leaving the party, or not the party, I haven't actually left the party, but leaving the caucus in September. And the reality is that I had a lot of great reasons to join the organization, to sit with people who don't necessarily share the same ideas as I do. And that's, primarily because, just like British Columbians across this province, we have differences, but there is more that unites us than that which divides us. And I think that, considering what the biggest challenges of this province are right now, we're talking about accessibility to timely health care, affordability, safety, and livability of the province. I think that the majority of British Columbians would agree we need to work together to solve these problems.
So you're still a member of the BC Conservative Party, not the caucus?
I mean, as far as I know, I never received notification that I had my membership revoked. I have continued to follow along with what's been happening in the party. And, I never had an issue with the party itself. I had some trouble with the leadership direction that John Rustad was taking. And the reason I was fired is for raising those concerns about his leadership. And I wasn't the only person who had those concerns. We see now that, John Rustad had other caucus members asking him to resign. He did that, which I think, must have been incredibly difficult. I have a lot of compassion actually for John. He invited me to run with him, and I did. He helped me get elected in Surrey Cloverdale and be able to achieve the results from my riding that I did. I actually, that's a very good thing that he did. I like how he even characterized the reasons that he did it, which is that he wants to do something in the best interest of British Columbians. And at the end of the day, when you get elected to public office, that's what it's all about, doing the right thing by your constituents.
It does certainly sound very diplomatic now, but not so a couple of months ago when you did leave. And there was all the uncertainty around his leadership, questions around his leadership. And do you think you played a role in fueling those divisions?
You know what? I think that the questions that I raised at the time were valid questions. I think that the decisions to make a change that were implemented now this week in the last 72 hours by caucus members were justified. I think also that the reflection that John did was a good thing. But, honestly, again, I think that there is more that connects us in the right of center than what divides us. And unfortunately, we have seen a lot of division in politics. And I think this is a great opportunity to push the reset button, to see some change, to see some new leadership, perhaps some new ideas come forward, because we do need to make a change in the province. By every metric that I can see, currently our province is in some deep trouble, and we need to have a strong opposition that can go forward and form the next government.
I take your point about working together, but when it comes to the MLAs who had called for him to resign, there were about 20 on yesterday's letter that had signed the letter This morning, about 24 stood behind Trevor Halford out of 39. And we heard from a number of MLAs yesterday who still stood by John Rustad. So I'm wondering how those bridges can be crossed over. How can that divide be bridged then, given perhaps, I imagine, still tensions lingering after all that's happened?
Well, one of the things that I can say is that I was actually happy in your newscast there to hear that John would stay on as MLA for Nechako Lakes. And I think that he has a role to play in helping bring the party together. He still has a role. He has relationships with those MLAs, and he has an opportunity to help the interim leader to make sure that the party stays strong. And I think it can be done. And I also do believe that going forward, the right leader will be able to bring people together for the good of the province. I think that it's not going to be an easy job, but I think that people see the necessity in it. And, I know that people have a lot of, they see what they see, from conflict or the news. But even when I was fired, you would be surprised maybe at the people who defended me and were very upset by my expulsion. People who are very far away from, being a center, political wise. But the reality is that when you work together with people, when you make that commitment, especially in your heart, to do things together that might be unexpected for British Columbians in terms of partnerships, but it is possible. And, it's one of the reasons I joined the Conservatives before in the first place, which I think for some people was baffling, because they were like, how could someone like Sturko, join and work side by side with people who some of them believe so differently than her? But that's British Columbia. We have a diversity of views, and I think it takes a special combination of people to be able to work together successfully. I think that, given the right leadership, that special combination is there. And it was actually very interesting for me and a learning experience as well to work with people who might not be aligned with me in terms of some of my views and in some of the way that I even live in my personal life. It was actually very enriching for me to do that.
Who do you see as someone who would be the right leader?
Oh, it's hard to pick a horse when you don't know all the horses, but there's a lot of people both within the party and outside the party that I think would be, exciting choices. But, I don't want to go too far down that road because they're in early days. Mr. Rustad, he just, said that he would step down today. I think that it's appropriate to give that a little bit of time to sort of coalesce and to, spend some time giving respect that he does deserve. He did bring this party from nearly nothing to being the official opposition. We have a historically large female caucus now in the BC legislature because he chose, a diversity of candidates. And I think that he also needs to be given credit for that. Yes, it was challenging. And I think that it's unfortunate that the conflict that, occurred over the last several months for sure in terms of challenging his leadership and wishing that he would step aside. It's unfortunate it went that way, but at the end of the day, the right thing has occurred, in my opinion. I think that there is a way forward here. And you know what? I feel in a way proud of the individuals who decided to take this opportunity to push for change, and that change starts today.
Finally, before I let you go, if you were invited back, would you return? Would you consider taking a run at the leadership?
Yes. Yeah. Well, look, I've said from the start that I would return if they had a new leader and if I was invited back. They may not invite me back. And, I'm actually, thinking about what my future in politics will look like. I've been incredibly blessed to be twice elected. I've achieved results not only for my constituents, but for British Columbians. And I'm going to do what it takes to continue to do that as long as I am an elected member of this BC legislature, and I'm honored to do so.
Would you consider running for leadership?
Again, I've been really blessed with the number of people who've reached out, not just in recent times in the last 72 hours, but for many months, who've expressed that they had confidence in who I am as a leader, who I am as a person, who've appreciated the work that I do. And so, you know what? I'm going to put some thought into it. I haven't made any decisions, but look, it's something that I'll have to decide, and I'll make that decision in the coming days.